bringing wisdom back to politics.
Hello, welcome to the Wise Conservative Show. You are listening to Connor Wise. So in this episode of the Wise Conservative, I wanted to go over something that is a really prominent issue here in America. Something that we have actually touched on in the past, but I just feel it's one of the most prominent issues in America, so I want to really go over it again. But this time I'm going to be going over it from a different point of view. My partner, Dakota Wise, he went over it from this college point of view. But I'm going to be going over the issue today of liberal indoctrination in our school system from a more high school point of view. Because as you know, I am still in high school. So I just really want to touch on just kind of the basics of where I am in this high school. So I go to this high school where there are maybe 4 or 5 conservative teachers in the entire school. I am one of the lucky ones, and I have 2 of those conservative teachers in my schedule this year. But it's just astounding. At a school that I go to, there's only 4 or 5 conservative teachers. And keep in mind, that is in an area where there is actually more conservatives than usual in California. So it's just astounding to me that there are very few conservative teachers at our school, which is quite honestly just, it's unproportionate to where we live. It's unproportionate to, quite honestly, America. So at this school, I am in speech and debate. Again, it is very unproportionate. There are maybe 3 or 4 conservatives in the entire program. Me being the most outgoing of all of them, I tend to be seen as this more extreme conservative, when quite honestly I'm not that extreme. So I express my views quite often at our school because, well, we really have to make our voices known when there are so few of us. So I make my opinion known. I give my opinion in these speeches in, well, quite honestly every class. And, well, when I give my opinion, it's quite sad because the rest of the class, the majority of the teachers, they look at it as, this kid is crazy. He has an opinion of his own. How can a kid in our public school system have this opinion that is conservative? So it's just, it amazes me. I'm at a loss of words for it, really, because it is so astounding that there are so many liberals in our public school system, which is directly unproportionate to the rest of America. So, I mean, it's just, it amazes me. And that's why I'm doing this episode here today, because, well, it's a huge issue here in America. So, as you all know, or I hope you do know, I run a political Instagram page called The Wise Conservative, _wise_conservative. Check it out if you aren't already following me. Well, it's actually been going really well. This past day, actually, I have reached over 2,800 followers. Thank you all for that. But yesterday, I posted something that, well, it was actually on this same issue. It was on the liberal indoctrination in our schools. So it was saying how, well, an education isn't always what you think it is. And it shows a school bus with all these different stickers on it that are all these liberal policies. And one of them that's actually highly contested on this picture was evolution. Now, I know you are going to say, well, a lot of people are going to say, yes, evolution is backed up by science. Some of you might even say evolution is a fact. Some of you might even say evolution is how everything happened. Well, that's your opinion that that's how it happened. But what I cannot allow people to say, and I actually correct people when they say this, evolution is not a fact. It is not a law in science. It is still a theory. But this liberal indoctrination in our school system has pounded it into our heads time after time that evolution is a fact. I remember walking into freshman bio a few years ago, and second semester, we went over evolution for, well, I think about 3 chapters. And I remember the first day that we went over evolution, my teacher said, here is the fact of evolution, how everything happened. Well, it's just, again, it's astounding. This liberal indoctrination has gone too far. I am not necessarily saying that evolution isn't real. I do not know, I have not actually done, studies on this. But I am not saying it is not a fact. Because, well, it's still a theory. And the majority of Americans overlook this. The majority of, public school students overlook this. Because from day one, it has been pounded into our heads that evolution is not just a theory, that it is a fact, that it is the law of the land. But the fact of the matter is, it is just a theory. It has not been proven. It is in the same exact area as creationism. It is both. They are both a theory. So these liberal teachers, these liberal students who say evolution is a fact, how can you argue against it? How can you say that this isn't true? Well, how can you say that this is a fact? You have no evidence to back it up. You have no evidence saying that it is, in fact, a fact. And it just, again, it amazes me. I am going to say that a lot throughout this recording, and it's because it's just crazy how much this liberal indoctrination has actually gone in our society. So, talking about that picture that I brought up, I looked through all of the comments. There were 15 comments on that picture saying that evolution is a fact. 15 people who have been subject to this liberal indoctrination. 15 people who have, been completely lied to. Yes, evolution is a highly accepted theory, but it is not a law. And we cannot overlook that fact. We cannot overlook the fact that this liberal indoctrination, these liberal teachers from day one have pounded into every student's head that, this is true. Because you know why? Because that is how the liberals think. They think, you know what? We believe it, so it is true. They do it in many things. Evolution is just one of the many times in which this happens in our public school system. And that is exactly why we as conservatives need to stand up. We as conservatives need to tell America that we are not going to sit idly by while this liberal indoctrination happens in our school system. We are not going to sit there and let these liberal professors, these liberal teachers, take over America day by day. Because this brainwashing is not acceptable. This brainwashing has to stop. And that is exactly why I joined this new nonprofit called Youth Revolt. You see, Youth Revolt, it's still in the beginning stages. It is dedicated to exposing that liberal indoctrination in not just colleges, but also in high schools. It is dedicated to expanding the conservative movement in our youth, the conservative movement among the millennials, my generation. Because, quite honestly, we are the generation that is going to have to deal with this debt. We are the generation that is going to decide the future of America. This liberal indoctrination is ruining that future. This liberal indoctrination is ruining the mindset of millions of young Americans. So that is why I am not sitting idly by while this happens day after day after day. That is why I'm not sitting there and letting this happen to me. That is why I'm not sitting there and letting this happen to you. Because we need to stand up. And if you are interested in this, just please message me. Please email youthrevoltmanagement@gmail.com, because we need more young conservatives like you. We need more young conservatives like me in this movement, because we need to show these liberal teachers, these liberal students, these brainwashed students, that there is another side. We need to show them that these liberal teachers are not the only option in America. And, right now, they don't see that. Right now, all they see are these liberal teachers. Right now, all they see is Bernie Sanders shirts all throughout a high school. Right now, all they see is these teachers putting up these Bernie Sanders posters in their rooms. It's astounding. It's amazing at the amount of political brainwashing that goes on in our high schools and in our colleges. So please look at this. Please look at the fact that we are it's a horrible situation. We are in this situation where we have to stand up now or forever hold our peace. We have to stand up now or our future is ruined. Because this brainwashing has gone too far. So this is just a huge issue. And that's why I wanted to start off by really acknowledging that it is also in high school. My partner, Dakota Wise, he already did it, saying how it is a prominent issue in college. And yes, it is definitely a prominent issue in college. But a lot of times people overlook the fact that this is still going on in high schools too. This is still going on in everybody's life who is in high school. My speech and debate teacher, my speech and debate coach, he is a die-hard Bernie Sanders fan. My speech and debate captain, he is a die-hard Bernie Sanders fan. My speech and debate, well, every officer is a die-hard Bernie Sanders fan. You know what I am? I am that conservative, the lone conservative in the group. The lone conservative who actually stands for liberty at our school. 4, maybe 5 teachers are conservative. Out of an entire school, a pretty large school considering it's one in California. It is bigger than most high schools throughout the country. And only 4 or 5 teachers are conservative. Just let that sink in, people. Let it sink in that we have this huge issue on our hands. We must act today. Because if we don't act today, America will fall in the future. We will be overcome with debt. We will become overcome with these socialist policies that people like Bernie Sanders want to enact. That is why I am making these recordings. That is why we are taking a stand. Because we cannot sit idly by. So I have talked about how this is, in fact, a big part in colleges. And I just want to go over something that I'm not sure if my partner went over this exact study. But this is a study that was recently posted. And it shows how only 1 in 5 professors are conservative. 1 in 5. In such a large area, such as the college system, you would expect it to be balanced. But, well, it's not. 1 in 5 professors are conservative. That is, quite honestly, just horrible. So we have 4 out of 5 professors who are liberal. Now, I am not saying that all of these professors are necessarily indoctrinating the liberal ideals to their students. But what I am saying is with that many liberal professors, there will be a lot of those professors who go out and they do indoctrinate these students. They do show these students that, well, they don't show them. What they do is they force them into thinking a certain way. That is the liberal indoctrination in our college system, in our high school system. So, again, we cannot sit idly by while this happens. We must stand up. We must join these movements that show that this liberal indoctrination will stop. We will stop it because we are conservatives who actually fight for liberty. We actually want to save America from all of these horrible policies that these liberals want to enact in our country. So, to give an example of this liberal indoctrination that happened in a university that, quite honestly, is really close to me, the University of California, Santa Barbara. Professor Young, now I do not know exactly what she is a professor of, but she is a diehard liberal. She is a professor at this school. And she saw this one, I don't even believe it was a student, it was just an adult in one of the areas designated for protesting. She was protesting against abortion. So this professor goes up to her, and she steals the sign that this protester is using. So this professor, she's already committed theft. She has already stolen this sign. And she continues to walk away. Now, at this point, that protester gets out her phone, and, well, the camera, she gets it out. She starts recording this horrible incident. Of course, the camera is shaky because, well, she just had her property stolen by a professor, someone who's supposed to be professional. So, of course, she is going to be nervous. Of course, she is going to be shaken up. And so she gets out this phone, and she starts recording rather shakily. And she's recording this professor who has 3 or 4, maybe 5 students walking around her. I would have to reference the video to actually see how many she does have around her. But this professor has many students around her who are walking with her and laughing at the fact that she just stole someone's poster. Laughing at the fact that she just committed a crime. As they are walking away, the protester yells, "Why did you just steal my sign? You just stole my sign." The professor yelled, "At least I'm not a terrorist." She directed that right at the protester, saying that the protester is a terrorist because she is advocating for saving the lives of babies. Now, I don't know how that works, but somehow in this twisted liberal's mind, she believes that saving lives is terrorism. Now, getting on to the story even further, because it doesn't stop here. This protester follows this professor into a building. At this point, she is on the phone with 911, and she is telling them about how she did, in fact, have her sign stolen. She is telling them about this horrible incident. And, of course, the professor is still just laughing at the fact that she committed a crime. She continues to walk away from this protester. The professor gets into an elevator. Well, before the elevator can close, the protester tries to get on it with the professor along with those 4 or 5 students that I mentioned earlier. Well, what happens next is rather disgusting. This professional professor, someone who's supposed to act as a role model to our college students, someone who's supposed to act like a role model to America, assaults the protester. She pushes her out of the elevator and forces her out of it so that the elevator doors close. This professor commits assault. This professor commits theft. This professor breaks the law just because she didn't agree with the protester's opinion. That is the kind of professors that millions of students are going to class to get lectures from. That is the kind of professor that is teaching our youth. This is a horrible issue in our nation, people. We cannot sit by and let this happen. I say that so much because it is so important. I cannot stress this enough. We cannot sit idly by while these professors, these teachers, these even students, they indoctrinate our school system with these liberal policies. Now, I don't know if that protester ever got her sign back. I don't know if she ever pressed charges on the professor. If I were her, I would have. But the fact of the matter is, this professor, just because she didn't agree with the protester's views on abortion, not only stole the sign, not only called the protester a terrorist for trying to save lives, but she also assaulted this protester. Now, take a moment to think about that. This professor, this professional, this person who's supposed to be highly educated, this person who is educating our youth, committed assault, called a protester a terrorist, and stole a sign because of opinion differences. That is what is going on in our society here today. That is what is going on in America, throughout the entire country. I gave one example, but there are hundreds upon, maybe even thousands of examples of this happening in America. It happens way too often, and, well, it's just not talked about enough. It is not talked about enough that these professors are indoctrinating our society. That these professors are committing crimes because they do not agree. So please think about that first off. But also look at the facts. Look at the fact that only 1 in 5 professors in college are conservative. Look at your own school. If you are high school age, look at your school. See how many people are actually conservative. See how many teachers are actually conservative. See if you actually have one person you can stand with. Because once you get one person, and once both of you stand up, you will be able to find more people and more people until everyone is not afraid to stand up to this liberal indoctrination that is happening in our society. Because This is a horrible, an important issue in America. This is a horrible issue that has to be solved. And it is our generation, the millennials, that will solve this issue. It is the millennials that will deal with not only the debt, not only with all these programs that might possibly be enacted, but also with the liberal indoctrination in our public school system. So, please think about this. Think about how we are outnumbered in our schools 5-1. Think about how we are outnumbered in speech and debate. Well, because conservatives are afraid to speak up. I know there are more than 3 conservatives who are able to give speeches at my school. I know there are more than 4 or 5 conservatives at my entire school. I have talked to many of them. But the fact of the matter is, in our society, these people are afraid to speak up because of the liberal indoctrination that's been happening since they entered the school system. The liberal indoctrination, like that evolution that I talked about earlier. The liberal indoctrination that will not stop unless we take a stand. So please stand up. Please say something at your school, at your college, at your high school. Say something at your workplace. Show America that we are the party of the future. Show America that we are the party of the youth. Not these democratic socialists, not Bernie Sanders. Because I'm guaranteed if 90% of those students actually knew what Bernie Sanders' policies were, they would not support him. I guarantee that 90% of those students, if they actually heard the other side, well, they wouldn't support Democrats anymore. But the fact of the matter is, in our high schools, in our colleges, people are limited. These students are limited to only one choice. And that is because these teachers are indoctrinating them from day one. They have these posters for their political candidate up on the walls. They have their background set to Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. They have these little things that indoctrinate our students. And, well, as a student, I can tell you firsthand, this is overwhelming. As one of the few conservatives who actually speak up at my school, I can tell you that this is a fight worth fighting. As one of the few conservatives at my school that is already fighting, I can tell you that we need support. We need your help. And that is exactly why here at Youth Revolt, we have come up with a liberal professor database. It is already up and running. It is at myliberalprofessor.com. Please, if you are in college, please, if you are in high school, please go check it out. Submit any liberal professor that you have to this website. It will just get them out there. Let people know that this is a prominent issue. Because up until now, this hasn't been talked about too much. Up until now, the millennials didn't have any thought that there was another side to the politics. But that ends today. It ends today. Because today we are going to stand up. Today we are going to take a stand and tell America that there is two sides to the politics. There is two sides to the thought process here in America. That is why it's so great. We have two sides to everything. We have the democratic thought process. But with this liberal indoctrination, those sides are taken away. With this liberal indoctrination, democracy is essentially ruined. So do not sit by and let democracy be ruined. Do not sit by and let your liberties be taken away one by one until you have none left. Do not sit by and let this liberal indoctrination continue to happen. Do not let your brothers, your sisters, your daughters, your sons, do not let them have to go through this. Take a stand, America, because the time is now. The time is now to let America know this issue will be behind us soon, because we let them know We are not going to sit by as this continues to happen. We are going to let them know that we know this is an issue, that we know that 1 out of 5 professors are conservative, that we know that there are very few conservative teachers at our high schools, that we know that this liberal indoctrination is happening from day one. So please let them know. Please take a stand. Because without you, this movement will fall. Without you, this movement will fail. We need to gain momentum. And quite honestly, we already have many people who have taken a stand. We have people who have recorded this, like that protester that I gave the story about. They are exposing this issue. You need to hop on board that train. Because this is not just lone events. This is happening in our day-to-day lives. This is happening to every student in public school. Take a stand, America. Because if we don't, no one will.
This was another production of the Wise Conservative Show. I'd like to personally thank you for tuning into this episode. We have new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. In the meantime, spread the word, fight back, and let's take back this country from the Washington ruling elite.